Hello and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video we're going to start looking at the Elspeth versus Tezzeret duel deck. I hope you enjoyed the brief intermission we had of the Get Decked, but we're back onto duel decks now. So yeah, let's dive in and start looking at Elspeth versus Tezzeret. So we're going to look at the Elspeth deck first, which is mono-white. So we've got 21 creatures, 9 instants, 2 sorceries, 2 enchantments, of course a single planeswalker, it being Elspeth's deck, and 25 land. We've got a mana curve off to the side there. So let's just dive in and start looking at the cards. So obviously we've got Elspeth as the foil face card, Elspeth Knight Errant, 2 in double white because it's the only Elspeth around at the time, 2 in double white for a 4 loyalty planeswalker. Unique at the time because I think she was the only planeswalker with 2 +1s, 2 different plus loyalty abilities. So her +1 is to put to make a soldier, and her other one is to basically do Angelic Blessing, +3/+3 and flying turn for a creature. Both those I think are pretty good. Obviously they go nicely with each other. You can make a soldier and then next turn give it the flying boost. That's pretty good. And then her -8 is really crazy. You get an emblem with artifacts, creatures, enchantments, and lands you control are indestructible, which is really strong. I think it's also the first time a emblem was used. Because we're looking back at, because she's the first in the wave of like the new planeswalkers that were in Shards of Alara. I'm trying to think of the others. I think she was the only one that had like an emblem, or like I don't think her original ability was an emblem. It was just like, oh, you just have a thing that your stuff is just indestructible permanently for the rest of the game. And I think there was like a rules change at some point to make it into an emblem, which we take for granted now. But yeah, I really like Elspeth. I think Elspeth's great. And then we've got a single Catapult Master, 3 in double white for a 3/3. You can tap 5, untap soldier you control to exile a creature. So this is a nice reprint from Onslaught block, which had a really heavy tribal theme. This is the only like soldier tribal effect in the deck, which I feel is actually a bit of a shame as we get into it, because obviously soldiers are really associated with Elspeth as being kind of like an iconic creature for her. Like she usually has a load of effects that make soldiers or care about soldiers, like creature tokens in some way. And this is the only tribal effect in the whole deck. So there are a lot of soldiers in the deck, but it's kind of pointless because there's nothing in here that really benefits soldiers, just the Catapult Master. Catapult Master on its own, I think, is like a perfectly good card. Being able to turn like maybe a bunch of soldier tokens into a removal spell is really nice. But yes, it's a shame it's the only effect like that. Right, then we've also got an Angel of Salvation, 6 and double white for a 5/5 with Flash and Convoke, so you can tap your creatures to help pay for its cost. It's got flying. When it enters the battlefield, prevent the next 5 damage to be dealt this turn. So any number of creatures and or players divided you choose. So obviously you can get it down potentially less than 8 mana. You got a bunch of effects that you're playing White Weenie, so you got a bunch of creatures. Basically makes every creature into a mana dork. Yeah, and there's just like a big 5/5 with flash and flying, prevents some damage, so you can drop it in the middle of combat. It's like a combat trick. I think it's all right. It's not crazy, like overwhelming. I don't think it's fine. It's basically fine. Yeah. And then a single Conclave Equinaut, 4 and double white for a 3/3, also has Convoke and Flying. So yeah, again, it's sort of like the same as Angel of Salvation. It's fine. You can potentially get it down for like cheaper than you would normally expect on like a body of this size. It's okay. And then Conclave Phalanx, 4 and a white for a 2/4, again has Convoke, and when it ends the battlefield, you get 1 life for every creature you control, which can be a lot because, say, we're kind of going wide with a bunch of White Weenies and like tokens and stuff. So yeah, you could get sort of like a good amount of life off it, I suppose. Right, then we've got a Loyal Sentry, so 1 white mana for a 1/1. I think this is a reprint from a Portal set. I seem to remember it being in Portal at some point. Yeah, so 1 white mana for a 1/1. When it blocks a creature, you destroy that creature and Loyal Sentry. They just kill each other off. Really, obviously, nice deterrent. I like this as a kind of essentially White's version of Death Touch in a way. Yeah, I think it's just fine. There's not much that we said for it. You haven't really got any ways of maybe like recurring or anything, but I think it's fine. Again, it's just sort of okay. A single Mosquito Guard, 1 white mana for a 1/1 with first strike, has Reinforce. So Reinforce is an ability. You can pay the Reinforce cost, discard it from your hand, and then you put a certain number of +1/+1 counters on a creature. There's a very minor theme of this in the deck. It's basically like this, the Bombardier there, and then I think there's one non-creature spell that has Reinforce well. So it's kind of like a very minor theme in the deck of like just distributing +1/+1 counters. But yeah, I like Mosquito Guard because like early game, it's a 1/1 on first strike, which is okay, and then late game if you need it, it's a combat trick. Burrington Bombardier, very similar. It's basically Wild Griffin but with reinforce for 2. So 2 and white, you can put 2 counters onto something. So yeah, these are like both fine, I suppose. Single gold meta Harrier, 1 white mana for a 1/1. You can pay 1 white and tap to tap a creature. Yep, so just a master decoy ability. It's fine. The Tezzeret deck does have like some pretty big creatures, so this is a good way of like locking them down and stopping them being a threat. Season Marshal does a tap down effect when it attacks, which is alright again, I suppose. And then Core Hook Master, 2 and white for a 2/2 when it ends the battlefield. You tap a creature and you basically you stun it for a turn, essentially. Yeah, so a whole bunch of tap down effects here. Got 2 core Skyfishers, 1 white for a 2/3 with flying. When it ends the battlefield, you return a permanent you control to owner's hand. So yeah, you could do this turn 2, like return a land you control, I suppose, and then you've got like a 2/3 flyer on turn 2, which is obviously okay, quite an aggressive play. You can use this to obviously reset ETB effects, I suppose, like or maybe the stuff like the Mosquito Guard or the Burrington Bombardier, like you've cast them, and then maybe you play this, you get them back to your hand, and then you can use it to reinforce. I suppose that's an option. Really, I think it's in here because it's a cheap soldier with an evasive ability. Same with the core Aeronaut, double white for a 2/2 with flying. When it ends the battlefield, if it was kicked, target creature gains flying until end of turn. It's got a kicker for 1 and a white. Again, just a way of giving like maybe just a creature evasion just to get it through. It's all right. Again, you don't have like a huge number of like big-ish creatures in here, and like the Tezzeret deck, from what I remember, has like quite a lot of flyers as well. So I don't really know how useful this would be, but it's better to have the option than not, I suppose. And then in a single Stormfront Riders, so 4 and white for a 4/3 flying. When there's the battlefield, you have to return 2 creatures you control to owner's hand. And whenever Stormfront Riders or another creature is returned to your hand from the battlefield, you make a 1/1 white soldier token. So this is like a pretty unique effect, actually. It's a reprint from Planar Chaos, where essentially like there was a bunch of these white like rescue creatures where they were kind of undercosted, but as a you had to like return stuff to your hand to pay for them. But the best ones had flash, so you could do it in the middle of combat or in response to a removal spell and save your stuff that was being targeted. Whereas Stormfront Riders is at sorcery speed, so you can't do that. But at least I suppose you return creatures with it, and then they replace themselves with tokens, and kind of like this core Skyfish, you can use it to maybe like reset like ETB effects, recast them, or like the reinforced creatures, you can then use them for that effect. Maybe, I'm guessing that's what the intent is. I mean, we could also say it's just a big soldier with flying, maybe. Yeah, I don't know, like I feel like if that needs to be the theme, like this kind of like whole rescue theme, you can absolutely do it in white. I think it just needs it just needed more for that to really be the theme and the strategy, I suppose. And then a bunch of boring soldiers, infantry veteran, 1 white mana for a 1/1, taps to give an attacking creature +1/+1 turn. Sure. 2 elite vanguard, 1 white mana for a 2/1. Sure. And then Glory Seeker. That makes me so angry that Glory Seeker is here. Glory Seeker always shows up in decks and makes me very, very angry because it was in a Zendikar precon, and there's absolutely better cards out there that this could have been. It makes me so angry. It's just like a 2/2 vanilla creature in here, and like you had like there's no restrictions in making this deck. You had the whole range of cards to choose from. There was definitely better than a 2/2 vanilla for 2 in white. That was a soldier. If you really needed it to be a soldier, makes me so angry that it's in here. And then a single Celestial Crusader, 2 and double white for a 2/2 with flash and split second, so can't be responded to with abilities, which I think is a really fun thing to have. It's got flying, gives all other white creatures +1/+1. It is symmetrical, but like Tezzeret's deck doesn't have any white creatures in it, so it doesn't matter. Doing a lot for 4 mana, honestly. Because it's kind of like a combat trick. It's an anthem. Can't be countered. Yeah, just really nice. I really like Celestial Crusader. And then randomly a Temple Acolyte, 1 and white for a 1/3 when it ends the battlefield, you gain 3 life. So this is actually something you could return with the Skyfisher or the Stormfront Riders and just replay it for an extra 3 life again, I suppose. And then a single Kemba Skyguard. Now, this is quite interesting. So, Elspeth versus Tezzeret came out before Scars of Mirrodin. It was, and each deck had one card in there, which was like a teaser for the upcoming for the upcoming set. It was kind of like, you know, like a preview essentially, like a little, which was, you know, kind of, I guess, maybe one of the selling points. And Tezzeret's deck definitely got the better of the two, as we'll see when we look at his deck. But yeah, this is Elspeth's deck, Kemba's Skyguard, which is a 2/2 flyer that gains your life when it enters the battlefield, which is like, of all the cards in Scars of Mirrodin you could have chosen as like a fun like preview card, you chose this. It's just a 2/2 flyer that gains you life, and it like, it's not exactly a groundbreaking card, isn't it? As we'll see when we look at Tezzeret's card. Elspeth's deck definitely got the raw end of like this kind of preview, I think. Right, then non-creature spells. So we've got a single Crusade with new art with Elspeth here. So double white to give white creatures +1/+1, which again, it's a symmetrical effect like the Celestial Crusader, but say Tezzeret's deck doesn't have any white creatures, so it's no risk to do it if you're just playing the decks against each other. And then we've got 2 Swords to Plowshares, and this was quite spicy. I'm going to say this is probably one of the selling points of the product, because I think it was the first time Swords. It's not the first time Swords to Plowshares was in a modern frame, because that was in Cold Snap, when it was in a modern frame, but it had like the original art. But this was new art on Swords to Plowshares, which I'd say to this day is still like one of the best white removal spells ever. It's 1 white mana to exile something with no conditions, and the controller just gets a bit of life. So for there to be 2 of these in here as well was really, really good. Again, it was like a big, I want to say it was like a really big marketing thing just to put Swords to Plowshares in here. With, you know, with a nice new frame and nice new art. So yeah, really, really nice inclusion. And then the rest is kind of like blah, if I'm honest. So we've got a single Sun Lance, so 1 white mana just does 3 damage to a non-white creature, sure. Journey to Nowhere, which is kind of like Oblivion Ring, but can only hit creatures, but it's cheaper. And then Assault Blast to destroy a non-white permanent, so this is kind of like fulfilling like the disenchant role, I suppose, in the deck. It's just much more expensive. At least it can hit creatures as well, I suppose. But it is obviously very expensive and very slow. We got Abolish in here actually as well. That's the actual disenchant effect. So 1 and double white, you destroy an artifact or enchantment, or you can discard a plains rather than pay its mana cost, which I think most of the time you would maybe try and do, I suppose, because then you're getting like a completely free disenchant effect. And obviously Tezzeret's deck is full of artifacts, so this is one of the better cards in the deck against in the mirror match essentially. We got a single Blinding Beam, 2 and a white, taps down. Either taps down 2 creatures or creatures you don't untap during target player's next untap step. It's got Entwine, so if you pay the Entwine cost, you do both effects. Yeah, and obviously those 2 effects combo with each other. But yeah, Blinding Beam is all right. And then 2 Raise the Alarm to make 2 soldier tokens at instant speed, which is again pretty good. But I say we've got all these effects that make soldier tokens, but nothing that really cares about them being soldiers, which is a shame. And then a couple of like combat tricks: Mighty Leap to give something +2/+2 in flying, Razor Barrier to give a permanent you control protection from artifacts or from the color of your choice in turn. Both these are pretty okay. And then a single Swell of Courage, 3 and double white, instant speed. Creatures you control get +2/+2 in turn. It's got Reinforce for X, so you can pay X and double white to put +1/+1 counters onto a single creature. So it's kind of nice. It has that versatility. You either go tall on a single creature or you go wide and like buff up your whole board. So yeah, it's all right. And then non-basic lands, we have a single Daru encampment with the all right, I'm just gonna say it with the art on this, like those buildings definitely have faces, right? It's something like out of Super Mario Brothers. Like they have like little eyes, definitely. I'm not the only one who sees it, I can't be. But yeah, Daru encampment, this is like the only other like real soldier payoff in the deck. So taps give you colours, or you can pay 1 white and tap it to give a soldier +1/+1 to end turn. It's like fine, it's whatever. And then Rustic Klachan. When it enters the battlefield, you may reveal a Kithkin card from your hand. We actually have a surprising number of Kithkin in the deck. If you don't, it enters the battlefield tapped. Taps give you white, or the ability I think it makes it more useful is its Reinforce ability, where you can pay 1 and a white, discard it, and then put a +1/+1 counter on type creature. Weird choice for a rare in the deck, honestly. Like, again, of all the cards you had access to when making this deck, you went with like Rustic Klachan, like a Kithkin land, and it has Reinforce. It's just weird. It's just a weird choice. You know, there's so many better cards out there that I think would have fit, and we're going to talk about them in a bit. And then we have a Kambir Crossroads, ends battlefield tap, gives you 2 life and it comes in, and then which actually goes nicely with the core Skyfisher. I suppose you return this, replay, and get the 2 life again, and 22 planes. Right, so as mentioned, like some of the card decisions in here I think are really weird, and there's a whole bunch of soldier payoffs I think that we could have had in here that I think would have been a whole lot better. So Captain the Watch really stands out to me as well. Gives all your soldiers +1/+1 in vigilance and makes 3 soldiers when it comes in. Darrow War Chief would have been nice to get this in a new frame, maybe with new art. Makes all your soldiers cheaper and gives them all +1/+2. Field Marshal gives all soldiers +1/+1 and gives them first strike. Preeminent Captain is, I mean, it's a Kithkin, so it kind of goes with all the Kithkin cards we got. But that has first strike when it attacks. You get a soldier from your hand into play, taps and attacking for free. Rock's Pike Master is because there was a whole bunch of like soldier payoffs in M10, but gives all your soldiers first strike. Veterans Armaments as well could have been here. This is from Morning Tide. It's the soldier equipment. It gets to attach to soldiers for free, and it gives like a pretty good buff. So like it's really frustrating actually that there's all these soldiers in here, but there's no reason for there to be a lot of soldiers in here. So the only payoff is the Catapult Master, which is like an okay payoff, but like you definitely could have gone further. And else there is a second Elspeth dual deck like way down the line. So I've not looked at the deck list for that one yet, but I'm wondering and I'm hoping that it maybe revisits the soldier theme and maybe does a little better, but we'll see that. So I'd love to know what you think about this deck. I wonder if you're as annoyed about it as I am, because I am. I feel like this is like a really big missed opportunity, honestly, like how this deck was put together. I just think it's a bit of a mess, honestly. It's kind of the classic thing of it's doing kind of lots of things not very well rather than one thing really well. But yeah, and yeah, I mean, even though there's some really nice like reprints in here, like that Swords to Plowshares, obviously, and Elspeth herself is like a really great planeswalker. But yeah, I'm not sure how it would measure up against Tezzeret's deck, which we'll look at next time. So I hope you join me for that one. But until then, thanks for watching and listening, and have a great day.